draw of Komi Can't Communicate is the fact that, well, Komi has trouble communicating. It leads to a lot of misunderstandings between other characters in the show, sometimes funny, sometimes a little sad, but often being resolved in a fun, lighthearted way. But how good is Komi Can't Communicate at actually showcasing what social anxiety is like? So we're gonna dive into that, but before we do, make sure you grab your cup because it's time to spill the anime tea. I am not a mental health professional at all or a psychologist. I'm literally just going to talk about how things relate to me and my situation as a person who has also dealt with things like this. So take that with a grain of salt. So today I'm going to be talking about the anime only. I have not read the manga, so I'm going to be basing it off of Netflix anime adaptation. Let's talk about what social anxiety disorder is. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, anxiety disorder, also known as social phobia, is an intense anxiety or fear of being judged, negatively evaluated, or rejected in a social or performance situation. Certain examples of this disorder in people are, people who are really shy, who do not like to talk in large social groups, and in some extreme cases, like Komi's, who do not want to talk at all. I really enjoyed that the first episode of Komi Can't Communicate really emphasizes how much Komi is struggling with her inability to talk to other people. She opens up to Tadano and writes like a whole story on the chalkboard about her disorder and how she is afraid that people are going to judge her if she talks. She's kind of already judged because people already assume things about her. She doesn't really like that. She wants to be able to like open up and talk to people and have real friendships and not just be seen as this like ethereal being who cannot be bothered with other people. So even though she has trouble saying all of this to Tadano, she's able to write it all out. I related a lot to the way Komi expressed herself through writing because I often express myself through writing as well. Writing is very important to people who have trouble verbally communicating. I also love that Tadano, instead of just talking to Komi as she wrote, he also wrote things down. He spoke to her in the way that she expresses herself. And I thought that was really beautiful to see and a good example of how to approach someone maybe in a really more like extreme social anxiety disorder situation like Komi is. I also appreciated that Komi sought out help for herself by finding Tadano and reaching out to him and telling him what's going on with her. And that Tadano was patient enough to like sit through and listen to her despite everyone else being kind of scared to actually talk with and take the time to understand what Komi is trying to tell them, which is a healthy relationship, a healthy way for people to like seek help and how people should try to react to people who they're trying to help through situations like these. I also really loved the example of Tadano. Tadano's a fantastic character. There's always this trope in shonen anime and in kind of harem anime where the main character is very basic. They're almost like in the background, but they're the main character, but it feels like they just are non-existent because they usually make it so that people can project themselves onto them so that they can be the one who's in the story. But Tadano doesn't blend into the background. Like despite him being always called average throughout the show, you can really see that he cares about Komi and wanting to help her. And in every little step that he does he's able to do that. Like he writes with her, he talks to her, he also like spends time with her and figures out like what her expressions are so that he can help other people understand like how she feels at that moment, which is like insane. That's like so sweet. I wish that for every person who has social anxiety, for someone to like be there to stand like with you and help other people try to understand what you're trying to say and what you can't say. And Tadano does all this in a healthy, non-creepy way. Like he's just being an honest, genuine friend. And it's so cute. And I honestly believe that whatever their relationship ends up being, if they do end up being in a romantic relationship, it feels like it's just going to be very gradual and based off of like just the time that they spend together. I also wanted to point out because the show is Japanese and in a society where there are a lot of people, especially younger, teenagers and younger, who suffer with mental health, and they have really high stats for that in Japan and honestly across the world. I thought it was refreshing to see a series like just tackle that head on, especially with social anxiety, which is becoming more and more known, but also diagnosed because a lot of people have this kind of separation between talking to people in real life versus talking to people online, with everything being digital now. Despite how much I praised the first episode of Komi Can't Communicate, there are some issues that I have with it, but I'm going to talk more about some more things that I kind of don't like. But before I do, make sure you like this video if you're enjoying it so far. If you have other series that you want me to break down and talk about like this or in this type of way, I would have a lot of fun doing that. Since this series particularly is a shonen series, meaning that the manga was released in Shonen Jump, and that is a publication that mostly gears towards younger male audiences. It makes sense why the show and the manga has a lot of comedic appeal and lighthearted situations, which can be a good or bad thing when it comes to the subject of mental health. Good because anime and manga are a way of escapism in Japan and across the world, and a way for you to like calm yourself and kind of reorient yourself when you are feeling overwhelmed. However, when it comes to showcasing certain mental health issues, it can be a little dangerous or not quite a good example for kids coping with similar issues, because things that are exaggerated or that are kind of taken out of context so that they can fit more comedic or other situations better. So they don't often serve as good examples of how to really cope with the issues that you are dealing with. And honestly, from what I've seen of the episodes so far, there's no real call to action for Komi or any of the other characters that have certain disorders to kind of go and seek help. Besides Komi seeking help from Tadano, she honestly doesn't seek help in any other way from anyone else. And that's a little concerning because there are, professionals and steps and things that exist to help people kind of overcome these serious issues that they have. And the power of friendship is fantastic, but the power of friendship can't solve everything, especially when it comes to serious mental health issues. The main thing that kind of gets on my nerves a little bit for Komi Can't Communicate is that it's an extremely beautiful main character. Like, Komi's gorgeous. She is the most beautiful character in the show. And she is the one who has the crippling social anxiety issue. And then she's the one who's given special treatment because she has the social anxiety issue. And it kind of feels like if any of the other characters had a really crippling social anxiety issue, we would not care about them at all because they are not Komi. Like, they're not this beautiful, ethereal girl. What's sadder is that I watched a brief interview that Viz Media did with the creator of Komi Can't Communicate, Tomohito Oda. Oda-sensei expressed that they originally wanted to base the story on a boy who had extreme social anxiety, but their editor was like, nah, that's not that interesting. We should do a girl instead. Though I understand why, from a marketing standpoint, they chose to make it, this really pretty, ethereal girl. Young boys are the key audience. If you make it a pretty girl, young boys are gonna want to read or watch it. Still a little disappointing to know that a boy can't have the social anxiety issue. We can't show that in an anime because it's just not interesting enough, even though I'm sure a lot of the kids or the young boys reading this manga or watching the anime probably have this issue. And then they're seeing it not through someone else that they could relate to, but someone that they would aspire to, want to be with. I don't know how to feel about that. And then secondly, just any other person, if any other regular looking person had this type of issue, it just wouldn't be interesting enough to care about or to want to even try to help them. I think it's fine that they have, fun, silly tropes and kind of ridiculous situations. It makes sense for the series that it is. I just don't think that this would be a good example for anyone who's actually has social anxiety to see how to cope with it. Like, this isn't the way to go. Because if you look at it, all you're gonna see is that this pretty girl was able to get some help because she's pretty. As someone who, as I said before, has struggled with different variations of social anxiety, mostly to the point where I have trouble talking about certain things to family and friends and other people, especially strangers, about lots of different things. Honestly, it's a miracle I can get on here and talk about anime so much, but that's just because I'm really passionate about it and it's on a screen and I don't have to actually talk in front of a lot of people. But I have had moments where social anxiety has held me back to the point where I just can't say things that I really have wanted to say. That's why I really empathize with Komi and her inability to actually talk. Basically, what I want to say is not every slice of life story is going to be a shining example of mental health and how to cope with various issues. And they don't have to be. They are honestly made for escapism and entertainment. And that is what I watched them for, and that's what a lot of people watch them for, and that's perfectly fine. But it is important to know the the distinction between a story that tackles certain disorders and how to cope with them well and ones that don't, which ones are made for escapism and which ones are made to send a message. Komi Can't Communicate is made for escapism and entertainment and fun, not to send a message on how to actually deal with your social anxiety. If you want to learn more about Netflix's other stellar anime series, like Blue Period, for example, make sure to go watch this video next. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Phoenix. This has been the Anime Tea, and I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe, protect your mental health, and seek out help if you need it. Peace out.